NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome in the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We are off and rolling here on a Thursday and moving forward throughout the entire college football season. Ohio State football, of course. The voice of the Buckeyes is going to join us each and every Thursday as we kick off the show moving forward, and we're going to get it started here today. The voice of the Buckeyes, Paul Keels, hanging out with us now as we kick off the show. Paul Keels, welcome in, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Justin?
Not too bad. Another day in paradise. How are you? You well rested? You ready to go for Grambling State on Saturday? After all the build to Texas, Grambling State coming up next.
Well, now, you may know this. I don't know if we talked about this earlier this summer. There's a story about why Grambling State is on the schedule. This was originally going to be the first of two bye weekends, and Connecticut was going to be the game on September 20th. For whatever reason, UConn wanted out of the contract. When they decided to get out of that, Ohio State decided they wanted to have their bye on the 20th, and the only school, FCS or FBS, that was available to fill the spot was Grambling State. So that's why they're there, and we look forward to it.
Well, they have our money. They have my money for Saturday. I'll be there on Saturday. So there you go. But hey, let me look. I know a lot's been made about, obviously, Ohio State defending national champions. They just beat, at the time, the number one team in the country. They're now the number one team in the country. But, we talk about them from a performance standpoint, but you calling the games. I mean, can you think of any stretch in the history of the program where Ohio State would go from a program like Tennessee? I mean, even if you want to go back to mid-November, top 5 opponent in Indiana, you're playing Michigan, Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame, and then to open up with Texas again. Can you recall in all the time that you've been calling the games for the Buckeyes, Paul, that where you've called that many consecutive games against powerhouse teams like that?
No, not at all. And having won 7 consecutive games against top 10 teams, that's the first ever at Ohio State. So, no, especially when you start the season like that and started against a team that you just played back in January. So, no, it really was it was one that kind of set the tone, Justin, for the way Coach Day talked about how their whole summer camp was. They were edgy. They tackled probably more than they did during their camp leading up to the start of the season. They realized that they had to be so much more on point for week one because of who they were playing.
Yeah, that's why when we'd have callers call in or guests or whoever would bring up the possibility of, there's always that national championship hangover. We see that happen. Even the team that loses sometimes has that little hangover the next season as well. And I said, well, we could talk about the thing of, Texas week one, you have to be a finished product. You don't. They didn't have to be. They definitely didn't look like a finished product and still come away with the win. But I felt Texas was always going to keep them honest because you couldn't celebrate too much that national championship. You didn't have Grambling State or Ohio or, a MAC school to open up the season with that you can kind of wet your palate a bit. You had to be prepared for week one. I kind of felt Texas kept them honest during the offseason, and it sounds like that's kind of what Ryan Day was saying too.
No, absolutely. And of course, you've heard it too, Justin. If they would have opened the season with Grambling State, you'd have heard people complain about, you can't get excited about that. So you can't please everybody. We know that. But, it was one of those things that, and everybody had talked about it going into it. Maybe on your show, you heard some of it. The loser of this game was not going to be out of the playoff picture. And there's no question that Texas will play better. Arch Manning will play better. But Ohio State will play better too. So that's kind of what you take away from it. And I think now when you've got the playoff system you have, playing a game like that, and if it doesn't go the right way, it doesn't penalize you like it would have done in years past.
And I was one of those that was against the expansion of the playoff because I thought it would water down the regular season. But to have Ohio State the way they won that championship last year after losing to Michigan, they lost to Michigan. It felt like the season was done. You lose to Oregon as well. And then they go on to win the national championship. You kick off the season against Texas. You're right. Texas loses. They're not out of the playoffs by any means. And Ohio State, they won, but they didn't look like a finished product either. The expanded playoff kind of allows the fans to relax, even when you see things that would probably have you anxious after week one, what we saw against Texas. We feel like there's plenty of time. We've watched this team go through the ringer before and win a national championship. And hey, at least they came out on top. And it wasn't a pretty game, as you called, but wasn't a pretty game, but they came out on top, and that's all that matters.
Well, and a lot of that too, Justin, is the fact that you've got a quarterback making his first start. Julian Sain was the number 3 quarterback last year, played 4 games really in mop-up duty. So there was going to be and still will be a learning curve with him. And Ryan Day admitted afterwards that they were probably a little conservative of what they did with trying to, open things up on offense just to keep them in sure situations. But if you think back, not to point fingers at anybody, but, there were at least that I can think of 3 passes that Sam threw that were dropped that normally, most likely, are going to be caught. If those balls are caught, then maybe the offense plays out a little differently. Maybe the momentum and the swing of the game plays out a little differently. But, what they did was they leaned on their defense that played at an incredibly high level, especially on 4th downs. And they were able, and also, too, Ohio State had to work with some challenging field position on offense at times in this game, too. So there were a lot of things that probably went into it not looking as sexy as everybody would like. Maybe we see some more of that go differently in these next 2 weeks. But, in November and in December, it's going to be a win. That's all that'll matter.
Paul, you've called these games for a while, and they've played in a lot of big, regular season games, taking out the playoffs and all those big bowl games. How did this last Saturday stack up against some of the regular season games you've called? Was this one different than any other regular season game you've called? This one, just even from a fan's perspective, sitting back watching, it just felt different. Did you get that vibe calling it as well?
No question, for a number of reasons. I think because of who they were playing, that had a lot to do with it. Because of, as you said, being the reigning national champions and getting the season started still with very high expectations. The university and the athletic department have done some things differently to change the in-stadium experience. And a lot of that was learned from the Tennessee game. What a lot of folks may not know, normal Ohio State game management didn't operate that game the way they did during the regular season. It was the college football playoffs that did the game management part of it. And that opened the door for some different things. You didn't see the on-the-field presentations during the timeout. You saw differences with entrance music and things like that. The whole thing they're doing in the beginning of the game with having a celebrity bell ringer, much like what the Bengals do with the ruler of the jungle. And they had Archie Griffin be the week 1 bell ringer. Who better to do it than Archie Griffin? Coach John Cooper is going to do it this weekend. So I think there was a lot of things that were different that made it feel that way. And you could tell, too, that people were in the stands maybe a little earlier than normal. It might have had something to do also with the Lee Corso farewell and the game day thing being down on the field. But there was a difference, Justin.
Legendary voice of the Buckeyes, Paul Keels, with us here, the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We talked about the gauntlet that Ohio State has just, ran through, going back into the, tail end of last season to now. And this is no disrespect to Grambling State, but you're dealing with young adults who, as fans, we get ramped up for that Texas matchup, and there's not the same feel for this Grambling State matchup. So that bleeds into how these players prepare. It's one, Ryan Day, his coaching staff have done a fantastic job throughout this stretch, no doubt. But I feel like we're, obviously Grambling State, Ohio State, this is a win. But I feel like this is one of the more challenging weeks for Ryan Day because him and his coaching staff and these players have all been ramped up for a big name opponent every game for the last 6-7 games. This is a big week as far as how they're going to come out and look. Are they going to come out and look sharp? Are they going to come out and just put their boot on the throat right off the bat? I'm curious to see how Ohio State comes out, because this is more about a mental approach than it is a physical approach at this point.
Well, it is, but one of the things you've heard Ryan Day talk about is the fact that, regardless of who the opponent is, it's got to be about them. Yeah. They've got to improve. And, the thing they've got this week that they didn't have going into last week, they've got an actual game film to look at and make corrections on, where they can point out, yes, what went well, but also very clearly point out where things need to improve. And that's going to be a constant message, and it's been constant what Ryan Day has said. And the other thing, too, and not that the coaches would ever say this, and maybe we in the public can think this way, you don't want to be a team that loses to an FCS school. You don't want to have happen to you what Michigan had with App State and things like that. So, you want to be on point. And the other thing that this is a game where if it plays out according to Hoyle, you're going to get a lot of players in the game. You most likely you'll see Lincoln Keenholz play at quarterback. You may see Tavian St. Clair get in there and play one of the 4 games he can play and still redshirt. You may see more of the running backs. We only saw 2 of them on Saturday. So that's the thing that for a lot of those players, you've got to think, and talking to former players who've been in this role, this is a game where some of those guys that maybe didn't get on the field much or at all, this is a chance for them to get on the field, and they've got to earn that in practice.
Last thing on the way out, Paul, again, we appreciate your time. Paul Keels, voice of the Buckeyes, every Thursday, going to kick off the show with us. Obviously, you're busy calling the Ohio State games, but whenever the game's done and you get a chance to keep an eye on what's going on around the Big Ten, anything stand out to you? Any team stand out to you over the weekend, or was it about what you expected?
I think it was about what I expected. Didn't get a chance to eyeball the Michigan game. curious this weekend to maybe get a chance to see what Bryce Underwood looked like, because the reviews sound really good that, he really gives Michigan what they didn't have last year, and that's the downfield passing game. Other than that, no, the Nebraska game was interesting because Cincinnati certainly had an opportunity to try and at least tie that or get a late lead, if not for an ill-advised pass at the end of the game. But nothing else specifically that jumped out. I'm still curious more about Illinois. They're the team that people seem to think, is going to be the new surprise team, although it shouldn't be a surprise. They won 10 games last year, but they've got to go on the road for the first time this season. So, but everything else, Penn State took care of business like everybody expected they would. So, nothing too terribly surprising.
All right, good stuff. Ohio State, Grambling State coming up this Saturday, 3:30, the kickoff, 2 o'clock. Pregame coverage begins right here on Dayton's radio home for the Buckeyes, 1410 ESPN Radio, and you'll hear that voice right there, Paul Keels. Paul, you the man. I appreciate you giving us time today. Thank you.
You got it, Justin. Take care.
All right, good stuff. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We'll dive into the Cincinnati Bengals as they prepare for the Browns coming up here this Sunday, and then the Reds last night with a prime opportunity to cut their playoff deficit down a game heading into a huge series with the Mets. Well, they let that slip through their hands. But nonetheless, we'll still talk more college football and Buckeyes when we come back as well. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. We'll be right back.
Cowboys fans. But really, Justin Kinner, you're a Cowboys fan and a Browns fan? Good Lord have mercy. I don't know what the hell to do with y'all. I really don't.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Appreciate the voice of the Buckeyes, Paul Keels, for joining us to kick off the show. Paul's going to hang out with us each and every Thursday to kick off the show throughout the Ohio State football season, of course. And excited about that. Appreciate that. And that's such a cool thing and that we're fortunate to have here on the show every Thursday. Paul Keels will join us. You'll hear Paul Keels coming up this Saturday on the call as Ohio State welcomes in Grambling State. That's a 3:30 kickoff, 2 o'clock pregame coverage begins right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. We'll get more into that Ohio State, into some Ohio State talk coming up here on the corner. I'm getting a little annoyed with the Reds. The Reds, yes, Reds fans even more. Okay. Terry Francona, we all agree that coming into the season that there wasn't a lot of optimism about this team, right? We didn't feel that the team did enough in the offseason. We knew that this was not a very deep team. They didn't add a whole lot of firepower into this lineup. We know that. Like we do this every year. We know the Reds' deficiencies. We talk about those deficiencies. We prepare ourselves mentally for when this team loses. And then we expect a manager to be able to do something with the bunch of nothings that the front office gave him and do something with it. A lot of Reds fans are actually being critical of Terry Francona. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like Terry Francona has been manager of the year by any means. But if we're going to criticize Terry Francona, can you name one other manager out there that you believe would have this team in a different spot? Is there any, because people do this all the time. You love to complain. Oh, the Reds made a mistake hiring a geriatric manager, an old school manager in Terry Francona. Okay. We just watched the David Bell era for 5 or 6 years, the new school era, the analytics era. That didn't get them anywhere either. What Terry Francona did get us is a team that is well in the playoff conversation deep into August. Oh, damn, I'm sorry. It's September. I'm not saying you're not allowed to criticize him. You could criticize him. But I can't tell you how many stupid things I've seen on social media of people wanting to get rid of Terry Francona. Guys, do you remember what happened the last time the Reds had a Hall of Fame manager that you all thought you knew more than? Do you guys remember? I do. Do you guys remember when you thought you knew more than Dusty Baker? World Series champion Dusty Baker won every single place that he went, including Cincinnati. Cincinnati hasn't won jack blank since he left. Do you guys remember the last time that you thought you knew more than the Reds Hall of Fame manager? I think y'all need to sit this one out. I think y'all need to be quiet on this one. You want to criticize the Castellinis. I'm not even a big Nick Krall. I'm not even anti-Nick Krall. Nick Krall is asked to cook you this fantastic meal, but is given a Aldi's budget. And by the way, I'm not bashing on Aldi. I love Aldi. I shop at Aldi. There's nothing wrong with Aldi. So anyone who shops there, I'm not taking a shot at you. I shop there. It is what it is. I love Aldi. But let's be clear, you're not going to make this beyond impressive, super fancy meal with an Aldi budget. You're just not. And that's Nick Krall. So I'm not going to beat up on Nick Krall. We all know what this is. We do this every year, including me. We get our hopes up. We get our hopes up for the Cincinnati Reds. We think that it's going to be different. There's a lot of criticism to go around. I'm going to pump the brakes on talking about this team as if the season's over until I come in on Monday. I'm going to wait till Monday to write a eulogy for this Reds season. I'm going to wait. They are 5 games out. If you're watching live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, take a look. There's the standings right there if you want to take a look. The Cincinnati Reds, as we currently sit here right now, are 5 games back in the National League wild card. The Giants have got hot as of late. They were 6 games under 500. They're 71-69 now. They're 4 games back from the Mets in the wild card. The Reds are 5 games back from the Mets in the wild card. And guess what? The Reds welcome in the Mets to Great American Ballpark this weekend. And the Cincinnati Reds if they can't win with Hunter Green and Andrew Abbott pitching 2 of the next 3 days, I don't know what to tell you. All right, that's why I'm saying let's just wait. I'm going to wait a lot of you have given up, and that's fine. I'm not even here to talk you off the ledge. I'm here to tell you that as far as me and my preference, I'm going to wait until I come back in on Monday to decide if this season is dead and buried. Andrew Abbott's going to pitch against the Mets on Friday, tomorrow. Brady Singer will pitch on Saturday. Hunter Green will close it out on Sunday. And the Mets are debuting one of their top pitching prospects, coming up on Sunday as well. So that's something to keep an eye on, going up against a rookie pitcher. So there's that. If you guys have given up on the Reds, you have every right. They're 70-70, 140 games in. They're a 500 ball club. We knew they were average coming in, and guess what? Here we are with 22 games remaining, and they are exactly 500. 70 wins, 70 losses. That's who they are. They can go 11-11 the next 22 games. That would put them at 81-81 on the season, and that's exactly what they've been. That's exactly who they've been all season. There's nothing to be super outraged about. There's nothing to be super excited about. We felt in the offseason, they went out and got Terry Francona as the manager. We felt that high, right? Like we felt that excitement. And it was followed up with moving on from Jonathan India to go get Brady Singer, which I liked. Not a bad move. I thought, okay, man, they get Terry Francona. You move on from, Terry Francona. You get Terry Francona. You move on from Jonathan India. All right, we're about to do something big here, and then it just stopped. The ups and the downs, right? The high of highs and the low of lows. Guess what? That's been the Reds in 2025. The highs of highs. They've beat teams like the Yankees, right? They beat this playoff Mets team coming right out of the All-Star break. They've beat good teams all year. And they've also lost to bad teams all year. The offseason was telling us what this team was going to be. The highs of highs, the lows of lows. They're 70-70. You guys could be upset. You could be angry. But what you can't do is say stupid things like the Reds need to get a new manager. And I've seen plenty of that stupidity on social media. Justin, don't call people stupid who have a different opinion than you. I'll work on that, but not this one. Not this time. I am not going, I'm not going to sit here and actually pretend that it's okay to think that the Reds' problem is Terry Francona. That's pure stupidity. You have Elly De La Cruz, who, yes, has been the Reds' best player, but was supposed to be one of the league's best players, and he has not been. He has not hit a home run in months. He leads the league in errors. Every once in a while, he'll wow you with a magnificent athletic play at shortstop, and then have 3 errors before the next one. I'm not even really truly beating up on Elly. I'm actually kind of happy. I think the Reds could afford this Elly De La Cruz. I think the Reds could give this guy a nice little contract. I think they could afford that, But we always knew that the margin for error was going to be super slim with this Reds team. It was going to take a lot of guys to play above the back on the base. They were going to have to play above the numbers on the back of the baseball card. We knew that. We knew Elly was going to have to be MVP. And I said coming in, I felt that Elly De La Cruz had a good chance of being MVP this year because I thought that if the Reds were in play, were well on their way to the playoffs, and he's the best player on a Reds playoff team with all the attention that they would get with Terry Francona leading the way, I thought for sure Elly De La Cruz they're in the playoff conversation, but they're 5 games back. They are dead even at 500 at 70-70. And he has a lot of errors, and he has not hit the ball to the ballpark in months. The power outage for him is kind of wild, right, guys? Now here's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting to hear that he's been battling some kind of season-long injury, which I respect that toughness to a degree. Yes, I get that, but, I would just appreciate transparency that he's battling through injuries, that he's battling through that. Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, when they're secret about it, that if you're not going to tell us that he's been battling through injuries, then I'm assuming he's healthy. And if healthy Elly can't hit the ball to the ballpark, then why are we worried about losing him to the Dodgers? Because the Dodgers won't want that. The Dodgers won't want that. So there's a lot of blame to go around. The Reds are 70-70, 5 games back in the wild card. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Except I'm going to ask you guys, stop saying that the Reds need to move on from Terry Francona. There's not a single manager in baseball. That guy doesn't exist. That guy, that gal, it does not matter. There's not a single baseball-minded person that could have got any more out of this team than what I think Terry Francona has. There's 22 games left, 5 games behind the New York Mets, and they have the Mets come into town this weekend, and you have your 2 best pitchers pitching in 2 of the 3. Cut that within 3 games, heading into that Padres series, and I'm going to scoot my chair back up to the table and pay attention. If they drop 2 or 3, they lose this series against the Mets, I'm done. I'm out. I'm done. And not that you need my permission, but I'll give it to you anyways. You have my permission to be done with this team as well. But all I ask is stop with the foolishness. Be critical. Be mad at Ellie De La Cruz. Shout out to Mo Egger. Mo Egger tweeted this out earlier today, and I could not have agreed with it more. I mean, you Reds fans, you Cincinnati pro sports fans have a habit of acting as if you're not allowed to criticize your star players. But Mo Egger tweeted this out earlier. I think it was yesterday, actually, when he said, the Reds will not permanently ban you from the ballpark if you acknowledge that Ellie De La Cruz's season has been disappointing. It has been. Ellie De La Cruz has been a ginormous disappointment. Leading the league in errors, has regressed offensively. He'll distract you with a couple wow moments from time to time, but overall, it's been a complete disappointing season when we're talking about a guy that, yes, we expect him to be the best player on this Reds team, which he has, but I expect him to be one of the best players in baseball, and he hasn't. There's a lot of blame to go around. I do kind of blame Ellie, by the way. I blame Ellie for why the Reds have just been stuck at average. Ellie's been average this year. The Reds go as he goes. When he's electric, when he's great, the Reds are pretty damn good. When Ellie's average, the Reds are average. And when Ellie's bad, the Reds have been bad. This isn't hard to figure out. The dots are pretty simple to connect as far as that goes. Ron Howard, what up, Ron? Ron says, Justin, maybe it's time to move on from the Reds this season. Face it, they're finished. Ron, I'm 3 games away from agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just not agreeing with you. Like I said, I'm giving the Reds one more shot. One more. That's it. Like, my interest in the Reds could be done by Sunday. It could be done by Saturday if they lose Friday and Saturday. I'm telling you, they lose this series, I'm out. I'm out. They win this series, I'm not all the way back in, but I'm not out, if that makes sense, right? I still believe, because we've seen this, right? How many times, to be fair, there's been a lot of you that have given up on this team multiple times throughout the season, and then you feel like a fool a week later when they they roar back in it. I feel like they have one more roar left in them. I do. I just feel like we're almost still too premature on giving up on this team. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I need to see them against the Mets. Andrew Abbott on Friday, Brady Singer on Saturday, and Hunter Green on Sunday. We'll see. Nick Lodolo, barring any kind of tummy issue or a blister, should be on the mound Monday for game 1 against the Padres. So we'll see what happens with that. But nonetheless, the Mets, the Padres, the Athletics, that's what's coming up. But I'm not giving up on the Reds just yet. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Going on. David Shaw. What up, Shaw? Shaw says, yes, rip the Reds fans over this BS about Terry. It's ridiculous. Reds fans don't deserve Tito. I truly believe most Reds fans want David Bell back. Makes me sick. Yeah, I'm with you, Shaw. We don't agree on much. But me and you are on the same page on this. You could rip the Reds. You could rip Ellie De La Cruz. You could rip Matt McClain. You could rip Nick Krall. You could rip Brad Meter, the actual general manager of this team. You could rip the Castellinis. But the most accomplished, successful baseball individual involved with that franchise, that's who people are going after. The one guy that has won everywhere he's been at, that's won multiple World Series, has taken multiple teams to the World Series. You stat nerds think you know more than him? You remember the last old school fuddy-duddy that you stat nerds thought you knew more than? Remember what happened when Dusty Baker left? The biggest win since Dusty Baker left for this stupid franchise has been acquiring Terry Francona. And you want to get rid of him. I think we've seen. Manager's not the problem. Dusty wasn't the problem. Terry's not the problem. I think we know what the problem is. And I think that the reason that this team hasn't given up and hasn't quit multiple times throughout the season is because of the leadership of Terry Francona. Stop begging for Terry Francona to be pushed out. That's ridiculous. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. All right, everybody, we welcome you back. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Coming up this Sunday, it's the return of the Sunday morning tailgate show. We will be rotating around all different Frickers throughout the NFL season. We kick off the show coming up this Sunday, though, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Centerville Frickers location. We will be at Centerville this Sunday, Miller Lane in week 2, Miamisburg, our original spot in week 3, and then Woodman in week 4. That's our schedule for the month of September. But myself and College Football Hall of Famer, former Pro Bowl running back in the NFL, Keith Byers, will be there every Sunday at a different Frickers location throughout the NFL season, and we kick it all off in Centerville this Sunday. Show starts at 11:30, but we'll be there at 11. So we look forward to seeing you guys out there. Again, come on out, get a good spot, watch all the games, including the Browns and Bengals, which kick off at 1 o'clock that day. Excited to be out there. Finally, it's back. The football season's back tonight, technically. Tonight, and we'll get into that coming up here shortly. So the Cincinnati Reds, 70-70 on the season. As we talked about, I see a lot of people chiming in on this right now in the chat. Just to reset this here, and then we'll close the book on the Reds this hour. Reds are off tonight, and the Reds were off a little last night as well. How about the fact that, the pitching has been the strength of the Reds all season, but they've been outscored. I mean, they gave up, 29 runs against the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are very good. I get that. But the Reds have been very good against very good teams all season. But anytime they've run into a good team as of late, they've been run through like a buzzsaw. I mean, the Dodgers swept them. They dropped 2 or 3 to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals aren't good. They just dropped 2 or 3 against the Blue Jays, and they've been outscored 25-18 in that stretch. So they gave up 12 runs in game 2, lost 12-9. I mean, if the Reds score 9 runs any other game, any other stretch throughout the season, those are guaranteed wins. The Reds put 9 runs up on the board on Tuesday and 9 runs up on the board last night and lost both games because they gave up 12 and 13. The pitching has been a little sus as far as that goes. But they're off tonight. They kick off the series with the Mets, who they trail in the wild card by 5 games. There's 22 games left. You trail the Mets by 5 games. You get them at home 3 times, and you have your 2 best pitchers on the mound in that stretch as well. You're going to have Andrew Abbott tomorrow night on the mound, a huge one at Great American Ballpark. Brady Singer on Saturday, and then hopefully the series is won by Sunday. Hopefully they're going for a sweep on Sunday with Hunter Green on the mound. But this is, like I said, you want to be out on this team, you have every right to be. I'm just not quitting on them yet until Monday. To me, this series is the season. This Mets series is the season. The entire 162-game season comes down to this one right here. It comes down to games 141, 142, and 143. If they win this series, I'm right back in it. So are they. And so should you. Some of you aren't coming back no matter what. That's fine. But the amount of stuff I've seen on social media ripping Terry Francona, and by the way, you're allowed to be critical of Terry Francona. Terry Francona has not been perfect this year. Okay, let's just be clear. I'm not sitting here saying that the man has been perfect. But we got to stop doing this thing where every time we criticize somebody that it's that we just want him out. You could criticize. I'm criticizing Elly De La Cruz all season. I don't want him out of Cincinnati. I just want him to be better. I want Terry Francona, a Hall of Fame manager, to make a little bit more, stop making so many timely mistakes, if you will. But I'm not questioning his baseball acumen. I'm not questioning whether he's the right guy to manage this team. If Terry Francona can't win with this group, nobody can. Nobody can. Terry Francona has us talking about this same core that's been around for a couple of years now that no one's done anything with. He has us talking about them in September. That's the most important thing to me. No manager out there is getting more from this team than Terry Francona. And you have a good, healthy chunk of people on social media trying to push him out. And I questioned you guys earlier on this. I said, hey, you remember the last time the Reds had a Hall of Fame manager? It was Dusty Baker. And, I remember the last time this fan base thought that they knew more than a Hall of Fame manager. It didn't go so well. It went very well for that guy. I mean, maybe Terry Francona loves that you guys want him out because the last Hall of Fame manager that this lame fan base pushed out would go on to win a World Series and would go on to be very, very good every stop along the way. Dusty Baker has been great everywhere he has gone, and the Reds thought that they knew more than him. They didn't. And they've been bad ever since. And now you have this fan base thinking that they know more than Terry Francona. It doesn't make any sense to me. Ro, what up, Ro? Bengals fan Ro. He says, what's up, Justin? I think the Reds will pull it together this weekend. They don't have a choice. I mean, after this weekend, obviously they're going to have less than 20 games left after this season. Right? They have 22 left right now. And in my opinion, they only have 3 games. This 3-game stretch, this series with the Mets, it determines everything. So I hope you're right. Doug Toby says some Reds fans are saying Tito should win the Ray Guy Award for top college punter. The last 7 games, he has made some bad pitching decisions. Bad pitching decisions? What pitchers is he going to go to? Terry Francona is not why they're giving up 12 and 13 runs. He's not why they're giving up 25 runs in back-to-back games. This bullpen has been shot, and it's been shot for a while. The original plan at the trade deadline, I mean, Nick Martinez has been starting games because the plan was to have Hunter Green, that soft pitcher, Nick Lodolo, all right, Andrew Abbott, Brady Singer, and Lytle. And you also had Chase Burns at the time. There was talks of moving Chase Burns to the bullpen. Nick Martinez is supposed to be in the bullpen. But between soft Nick Lodolo and his little tummy issues and his blisters, they haven't been able to utilize that plan. And I'm not convinced. And by the way, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this or not. I don't really care. I'm not convinced that Chase Burns is actually hurt, by the way. I think that this was all manipulation. This was all done on purpose. It's kind of funny to me that the same week that the team was talking about potentially shutting him down or moving him to the bullpen because of the innings restrictions, it's a coincidence. It's not a coincidence to me that all of a sudden he has this phantom injury that puts him on the IL for almost 2-3 weeks now. You have the Cowboy who's even skeptical, and he's even calling out the team in the middle of I haven't heard a broadcaster call out the Reds since Marty Brennaman, and the Cowboy's doing it too, questioning what in the world the Reds are thinking as far as their handling of Chase Burns is concerned. I think Chase Burns, I don't think he's hurt at all. I think this was their way to manipulate it because they were trying to buy time so that if the Reds were back in the playoff picture, now they could put Chase Burns back out there and not have to worry about an innings count. They were just trying to buy time. And I think that's what this was. And it might have bit him in the ass because had they just moved him to the bullpen, which technically I sound hypocritical here. I wasn't the biggest fan of that idea, but that would have at least provided a strong arm in this bullpen to ride the ship a little bit. So no, I'm not going to blame Terry Francona for pitching decisions. Just because you would do something your way doesn't mean it was the wrong decision based on the Hall of Famer. Terry Francona knows more about baseball than me, you, everyone watching and listening at home in your car, wherever you're at. Terry Francona knows what he's doing. Terry Francona didn't make pitching mistakes, or, whatever. Okay, there's some things I disagree with, but I don't know if they're wrong. Terry Francona knows what he's doing. Doug Toby says, have to blame management, not Tito or Bell's fault. Need a 30. David Bell, stop. Your obsession with David Bell. David Bell was average on a good day. We've moved on, Doug. We've moved on from David Bell. The Reds moved on from David Bell for a reason, and they upgraded to a Hall of Fame manager who you're being critical of. But you said need a 30 home run outfielder. Yes, me and you finally on the same page. Kyle Schwarber, please. Anybody? 30 home run first baseman. Yes, please. Somebody. I mean, but see, Doug, here's the problem with your shopping list here. That's a Costco shopping list for an Aldi shopper Reds team. The Reds go shopping at Aldi, and you're putting a list together for Costco. We want to buy home runs in bulk. The Reds want to get 1 home run a series over at Aldi. Me and you are on the same page, Doug. I want a 30 home run outfielder. I want a 30 home run first baseman. I want a real closer. Can't keep waiting on all these minor leaguers to develop. Doug, here's the thing I disagree with you on, and we agree. I agree with you. But we can keep waiting for the minor. Like, the Reds are the epitome of, they love to sell hope. They love to stack up their farm system because we're suckers and we fall for it. Hey guys, man, Ellie De La Cruz, we're talking about him a lot. Sal Stewart, Chase Burns, Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo. I mean, you guys, we had Jonathan India, Rookie of the Year. Tyler Stevenson was a hell of a prospect. Guys, all these prospects that have come up over the years, some are here now. Sal Stewart just got here. They've been throwing and flashing those names in front of us for a while, basically just saying, just give it time, give it time, give it time. What's that? John Cena, my time is up, time is up, and time is now, whatever the hell the song is. That's how I view the Reds. I'm tired of waiting. I don't want to wait anymore on these prospects. You need to, these prospects are here, and they've been pretty good. And the only thing that they haven't done is balanced out the roster to give these, because you're calling up these prospects to be the men. Like, you're calling them up to be the guys when they should have been called up to be young stars with experienced veteran players plugged around them so that everybody's gelling and producing at the same time. Some of this, Ellie De La Cruz, him pressing the way he is and making the mistakes at shortstop and others, some of it, yes, because he's young, but I think he's feeling a lot of the pressure of Ellie De La Cruz has to be the guy. Ellie De La Cruz should not be forced to be the guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like Shohei Ohtani, when he was coming up with the Angels, Shohei Ohtani never felt that he had to be the guy because you had Mike Trout there. Shohei Ohtani, with all his success, goes to the Dodgers. He doesn't feel like he's the guy. He doesn't feel like he has to be the guy because there's so much. I'm not expecting the Reds to have a Dodgers type roster, but Ellie should have never been put in the spots where he should have felt like he had to be the guy. But yeah, Doug, I'm with you. I'm tired of hearing about the prospects. It is what it is at this point. Chad, what up, Chad? Didn't the Giants just tie the Mets? No, the Giants are ahead of the Reds in the standings. We'll pull that up now for you to take a look at. The Giants are ahead of the Reds in the standings. So Giants are 4 games back from the Mets. The Reds are 5 games back. And by the way, it wasn't even, I think, 2-3 weeks ago, the Giants were 6 games under 500. The Giants were so far down in the wild card standings, I wasn't even paying attention to them. Same thing with the Cardinals, and they've come creeping back in. The Diamondbacks, this is what they do. The year that the Reds were the first team out that missed the playoffs, it was the Diamondbacks that got in that final wild card spot. The Diamondbacks always do this thing where they just kind of creep around, hang around, and then boom, they play great baseball at the right time. The Reds have been playing great baseball post All-Star break. Now that the lights are getting brighter and the moments are getting bigger, what did Kev call it? They're getting that lemon booty, right? Like everything's just kind of tightening up. Sphincters tighten up. Everybody, the moment's getting too big, too bright. They're playing nervous. They're playing young because there's just no veteran players on this team to help lead the way. It's unfortunate. Ann Anderson, how are you, Ann? She said baseball at its finest, great pitching and no run support, great run production and pitching. Tanks. Yeah. The Reds have been great pitching all year, have struggled to get consistent run support. They finally get 9 runs on the board back-to-back games, and they give up 25 runs in that stretch. I'm with you. The Dragons have won 24. They have won 14 games in a row and are going nowhere. Baseball, the fickle finger of fate. That's a lot of Fs right there. There you go. Another F right here. Mark Daniel says Francona is a great manager, and I still think the Reds will make the playoffs. Mark, I love that positivity. That's the kind of positivity we needed to close out this segment. Good stuff. The voice of the Buckeyes, Paul Keels, he kicked off the show with us. You're going to hear more Paul Keels coming up around the corner. Also, if you missed the Ryan Day show earlier today, we have that coming up for you again around the corner as well. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits.